So here it is, YouTube. I'm Roadhawk Wilson, welcoming you to Angel's Reverie, and today we're going to be discussing a new series called DMing with People with Disabilities, where we discuss how to craft a D&D story, a D&D campaign with people with disabilities. And people with disabilities has such a broad terminology, but in this mindset, we're going to be focusing on people with intellectual disabilities and people with mental health aspects. Now, the first and most important aspect of a DMing session or dungeon mastering or Dungeons and Dragons session is the story. And when working with people with disabilities, one thing you have to look at is that there might be a series of trauma, there might be a series of triggers, and also your word choice. Now, triggers are an important part of society, and knowing how not to instigate a situation among your group is incredibly important. So knowing how you're going to utilize your word choice and ultimately create a story that is compelling and agreeable to all of your participants is a lot different than if you were just getting together with a group of friends who doesn't have a medical history that is more complex. So storytelling is the first episode we are discussing because that is ultimately a very, very integral and important aspect in which you ultimately have to know how to phrase the words you choose, how to come up with a language that suits every participant, especially if your group varies in disability. Now, I'm not saying that people with disabilities don't understand most words or don't understand complex words, because that's just not true. Some of the most intelligent people I know are people with disabilities. There's actually a fallacy that people with intellectual disabilities are not intelligent. That's just not true. However, even with, in a regular setting of D&D with people who are experienced, there are terminology, there are monsters, there are creatures, there are rangers, there are paladins, and not everyone is going to know how that is. And incorporating a background of your client base or your friend base into what you use terminology wise is important. And especially with working with people with disabilities, you want to make sure that it's simplistic enough that they don't get disoriented or lost, because a key part of creating a campaign is allowing your players to feel like they're heard and they can have a fun time without having to have a dictionary by their side. In fact, as a DM, it's your responsibility to be able to have those resources available and not make your party members look that up. Overall, when you're creating a story, make it compelling. Create a world in which people can easily be drawn into, but be prepared to throw in a world where, a stable hand can become a great hero. People with intellectual disabilities, or people in the mental health spectrum, or whoever you are working with, want to be engaged. They want to have a story in which they feel like they can have fun. So word choice is important, but also crafting the narrative element around the people in your party in any D&D campaign is essential. But with people with disabilities, you want to make sure it's especially enticing, because you want to keep them engaged for a long time. Now, this is true of any campaign, but with people with disabilities, they often function at a very high level. They have a degree of needs and wants, and you want to be able to know when to take breaks. You want to know when you are losing their attention. You want to know how to suit their needs while telling a story. And I'll be honest, DMing, and I do this pseudo professionally now, is hard enough just telling a story, but making sure you're telling a story that entices a group of people who come from all walks of life is very important and necessary. So you want a story that they can see tangibly, but you also want a story that has enough twists and turns that it's not confusing, but it's also something that they can elaborate on and choose their own adventure, which that is one of the key elements of D&D, is choosing your own adventure. You want them to be able to feel free in the story to make choices that go against you as the DM. And in a community where people are often told they can't, empowering them to make these decisions is such an important part of the story, which is part of the reason why it needs to be compelling. They need to become lost in it, and they need to be able to ultimately breathe life into the story by making decisions and choosing who they want to be in the campaign. Now, I've talked about this for 5 minutes, and I feel like I've covered quite a bit, and we'll do a part 2 to the storytelling, but I can't imagine many people will listen to me talk for too much longer. So with that, I'm going to end the video here, but I am going to throw up some splash images to try to keep you guys enticed, and hopefully we'll have a great conversation in the comments section with any questions you have about creating a session for those with disabilities. Please let me know what you think. Know that you guys matter immensely. Know that you have questions that are worth asking, and know that you are important. I'll see you in another video.